What's up, friends? I am going through the Muscle and Metabolism Masterclass for my online friends. I'm doing this presentation in Clovis, California, where I live on Saturday, March 8th. But I'm recording this a little bit ahead of time for practice and to share with people who can't make it in person. So thank you for being here. Excuse me. We're going to get into it. Muscle and Metabolism Masterclass, what it really takes to get strong and lean. All right, so here's a little bit about me. I'm Rachel Eslick, 44 years old. I'm a mom, I'm a wife. I was an athlete in high school and college. My first career was in journalism. Some fun facts about me. I love Hallmark movies because there's always a happy ending, and I like going to bed early. So yep, that's where we're at in life. I am the owner of Reach Fitness. I work with people online and in person. I have currently about 50 plus clients in a combination of one-on-one training sessions and virtual group sessions. I also teach in-person group classes at Core Pilates in Clovis. So a number of different ways that you can work with me, primarily training. I do coach nutrition as well in a couple different ways, one-on-one. I run group challenges a couple times a year where we learn how to track macros and kind of just dial in our nutrition for about 28 days. Yeah. And then my credentials, I've been a personal trainer for 10 plus years. I have specialty kettlebell certifications, body weight certifications, and then my nutrition coaching credentials are through Precision Nutrition, which is a organization that certifies primarily personal trainers to work with their clients on nutrition. So it's all science-based, just kind of learning about calories, macronutrients, habit-based changes. Okay, so if we were in this class virtually or in person together, then I would ask you for your name and what you're hoping to learn in this masterclass. So I'm sorry, I don't get to learn more about you, but it's my hope that when I'm with people in a live setting, that I can kind of get to know them and what they're really looking for out of this class so that, if I'm not covering that information, I can tell them where to get it or maybe just answer some quick questions. Okay, so I'm hoping that some of these things resonate with you. You're in the right place if you're hoping to get more strong, maybe lean out. You want a reasonable, sustainable, effective approach to training and nutrition. Maybe you're someone who's busy and you don't have a ton of time to devote to your training and nutrition. Maybe some of the things that you used to do just aren't really working in the ways that they used to. Maybe you used to be able to snap back in shape right away. And now those old tricks are not working so much anymore. Maybe you feel stuck. Maybe you've tried so many things, but nothing really sticks. You feel like you're always starting over. Maybe you're in that stage where you're just like avoiding mirrors, avoiding pictures, just not really loving what you're seeing and it's bumming you out. Maybe you're just confused. Oh my gosh, there's so much noise out there. If you open up your social media platforms or turn on the news, there's all kinds of things out there scaring you away from eating fruit or doing too much cortisol spiking. It's bananas. Maybe you're discouraged about where you're at and you're getting older or your genetics or your metabolism or whatever. Maybe you're just feeling discouraged. Maybe you know what to do, but you just haven't been able to execute it long term. Please know this, that there are no quick fixes. I'm sorry, I do not have a, magic wand. There are many different ways to go about this. I'm just going to tell you kind of what has worked for me and my clients. Body recomposition, and that's a fancy name for preserving or adding muscle mass to your frame and losing fat. Body recomposition takes a long time. It could take a year or longer. It is not something that's going to happen in 8 weeks or 2 seconds. It is a challenging thing to do. If this stuff were easy, then we would all be walking around with our ideal figure And that is not the case. And then knowing what to do and actually doing it are two different things. Knowing is just a tiny piece of the puzzle. Implementation of this stuff is lifelong work. So we're going to keep on putting in the reps, baby. And your mind might be the biggest muscle that you need to train. All right, moving on. All right, here's what we're going to talk about. Here's what we're not going to talk about. We're going to talk about kind of just generally what happens to our body, what happens to our muscle, our metabolism as we get older, specifically for women. We're going to talk about some, really important training aspects, some really important nutrition aspects. I'm going to answer your questions, take as much time as we need for that. But here's what we're not going to be covering. We're not going to be covering anything that's not on that first list. We're not going to be doing a deep dive into hormones or supplements or meal plans or how to track macros or really how to utilize this information. I'm going to give you the information, but the application and implementation is going to be up to you. And obviously, this is just one class. This is not ongoing support. So if you need those things, then we can talk about that after. Send me an email, my virtual friends. Okay, so let's talk about metabolism. My metabolism runs slow. Mine, no one says they have fast metabolism. Everyone's like, my metabolism is shot. And your metabolism is something that is always adapting over time based on the inputs that we are providing. So, our metabolism is just a chemical reaction in the body that changes food into energy. It's just a chemical reaction. Food into energy. We have resting metabolic rate, that is RMR for short. We have our basal metabolic rate, BMR for short. These two things are different, but they are very closely related. And your resting metabolic rate and your basal metabolic rate are probably pretty close to one another. Let's just talk about your resting metabolic rate to keep it easy. If you were just chilling on a lazy day and you did nothing, you were just couch potato, what do they call it? Bed rotting all day, just chilling in bed. You're not running errands, you're not cleaning up your house, you're not exercising, you're not teaching, you're not making dinner, you're just, food is being brought to you and you're being waited on. What is the amount of calories that you're going to need on a very, very, very minimal activity, restful day? There is a baseline amount of calories that we all need just to grow our hair, pump blood through our veins, to grow new cells, right? Our body needs energy just to operate, just to breathe, just to blink our eyes. So for some people that might be 1200 calories, for some people that might be 1500 calories, for some people that might be 1000 calories. It just kind of depends. But we all have like a baseline resting metabolic rate. So our metabolism is always adapting based on several different factors. So there are things that we can control and there are things that we can't control. So let's talk about the things that we can't control. Our metabolism typically slows down as we get older. So our age is a factor. Our sex is a factor. Typically, men might have a metabolism that is a little bit more adapted to run faster than women. And then our genetics and body type. So those are factors that we cannot really control or change, but there are some things related to our metabolism that we can change. So the amount of muscle that we have on our body, that is going to increase our metabolic rate, and that we do have some amount of control over. We definitely have control over our activity level. So just how active we are throughout the day, walking around, moving around, doing stuff. How we're working out in the intensity of our workouts, we have control over that. And then we definitely have control over our food choices, how often we're eating, what we're choosing to eat. These are all factors that can have our metabolism be adapting slower, faster, based on what we're doing with our body. So if we want to maintain muscle or add muscle to our frame while reducing fat, that's body recomposition. That's going to be a combination of strength training, giving ourselves adequate calories and protein, and then time. So we're not going to change our metabolism overnight. This is going to be something that takes a long time to achieve, but it is achievable. We're going to play the slow game. Okay, so what is happening with our muscles and as we age? So after age 25, people see after age 25, our metabolic rate, so that RMR that we talked about, it decreases. So it's a 2 to 4% decrease every decade. So that is not a huge amount every decade, but over time it adds up. So when we're 25, our resting metabolic rate might be something, and then at 35, 45, 55, maybe it's gone down 4, 8, 12%. So that is a lot over time when we're talking about decades passing by, but it's not a lot year after year. So it might be something that we really don't even notice, but when we're 55, our metabolism is probably going to be a little bit different than it was at 25. Now, our muscle mass is also decreasing each decade. So after age 30, we're naturally losing about 5 pounds of muscle each decade. That's called sarcopenia. Sarcopenia is just a medical term for muscle loss. Now, this is what's happening if we're not actively training to build muscle or preserve muscle. So this is just these statistics are basically like people that are not strength training, people that are not working against muscle loss. This is just untrained people that going through life and losing 5 pounds of muscle each decade. So really that's like a half a pound of muscle each year. Again, you're not noticing it year after year, but decades, 30 years, and you have 15 pounds less muscle on your body at 55 than you did, say, at 25. These are some of the reasons that naturally people gain weight. And maybe your weight stays the same actually, but typically people are gaining fat as they age. Even if you are the same weight and you are not actively working against muscle loss, you might be the same weight. Say you're still 150 pounds, but you have a lot less muscle on your body and you have more fat on your body. This is what's naturally occurring if you're not working against this trend. And we can work against this trend and we can reverse this trend, which is, I think, really good news. And I'm happy to tell you about that and about how to do it. So the top picture is going to be 5 pounds of fat and then 5 pounds of muscle. The fat is obviously yellow and the muscle is red. The muscle is like more dense, it's tighter, it's smaller. The fat is more kind of billowy and voluminous. I'm showing you this because there's, I don't want to get bulky if I have too much muscle. Critics out there, and I think a lot of people are over that, but just in case anyone's not, muscle is not bulky, muscle is tight and it's dense. The fat is what is more billowy and voluminous and fluffy. So muscle on our body is a really good thing. Muscle provides us strength, right? Like when we feel strong, we can do a lot of stuff on our own and that feels really good. It just improves the function of our body. We're just moving through life better able to do all the things. A lot of people think that muscle looks really good. So it's an aesthetic thing. It's a more metabolically active tissue or more like expensive tissue when we're talking about calorie needs, energy needs. So when we have more muscle on our body, we're burning through calories more effectively and more efficiently, and it's increasing our insulin sensitivity. So it is good for our hormones. And we can change the amount of muscle on our body. It might be a difficult task, but we definitely can increase muscle on our body through the right training methods and through eating the right amount of food. Let's talk about body recomposition and weight loss versus fat loss. So when we think of weight loss, we think of just like losing weight by being in a calorie deficit. So you could eat donuts and Oreos and be in a calorie deficit and lose weight. So, say you were eating 3,000 calories and now you're eating 2,000 calories, which is putting you in a calorie deficit. Therefore, you are going to lose weight. Now, when we're just losing weight through a calorie deficit, we could be losing a combination of fat and muscle. Because when your body is relying on its own energy storage, it's going to draw from wherever it needs to in order to fuel for all the things growing your hair, breathing, pumping your blood through your body. So it's going to draw from your fat stores and your muscle stores. So when that happens, when we're just losing weight, a combination of muscle and fat, we're going to really like look the same, but just be a little bit smaller. So that's the picture on the left. That's like, okay, this person was 175 pounds. Now they're 140 pounds, but they didn't really like reshape their body. Same shape, just a little bit smaller. When we talk about fat loss, what we're trying to differentiate between is losing fat, but preserving or adding muscle to our frame. So in this case, this person magically has a six pack, which is awesome. But by focusing on what the calories are that you're eating, not just the number, but like what's within the calories, and trying to strength train and trying to eat enough protein so that your muscles are preserved, they're not wasted, we can try to keep the muscle on your frame and primarily lose fat. Now, anytime we're losing a whole bunch of weight, it's gonna be a combination of fat and muscle. It just is. It is really, really, really difficult to, if you lose 50 pounds, some amount of that is probably gonna be muscle. But we're trying for it not to be like a 50-50 ratio, maybe 10% muscle and 40% fat. 90% fat. Sorry. So the point is for body recomposition, fat loss, muscle maintenance, and then fat loss. So how do we do this? Well, I think it's a combination of how you train and then how you eat. So let's talk about training first, and then we're going to talk about nutrition second. So how do we build muscle? So think about building muscle, or at the very least, every day we wake up, we're getting a little bit older. So preserving the muscle that we do have. Muscle responds to demand. So it responds to the stimulus that you give it. We need to be lifting weights that are challenging for us in order to build muscle. Not only challenging for us today, but challenging for us in 6 months and a year. So if we're lifting 25 pounds in a goblet squat, which is what the picture is on the left, then if 25 pounds is heavy for 10 reps or 15 reps, and then over the course of time, it starts to get a little bit easier and a little bit easier, we want to be increasing that load to 30 pounds or 35 pounds if we're still doing those same reps. Because over time, as we get stronger, that load is going to feel lighter and it's not going to be that same challenge for us. So we need to be progressively challenging ourselves, lifting a little bit heavier. The gold standard for strength training is 2 to 4 times a week, but the minimum, the bare minimum, is 2 times per week, 30 to 60-minute sessions. So this is lifting weights, challenging ourselves. Honestly, I put reps in here for hypertrophy, for building strength, for building power, the reps for like more endurance and conditioning. This is a little bit into the weeds. This is like if you're a personal trainer and this stuff is like useful for you, cool. But really, like what I want people to take away from this is you should be lifting to the point where you're not failing the rep. Your form is still really good and you're able to complete the set, but you don't have a lot of energy left. So if you're doing a goblet squat and you can do 10, but it feels like you probably could have done 10 more with that same weight, you need to increase the weight or add reps until you feel like you're at maybe 1 or 2 reps left in reserve. It's called RIR. So you want maybe 1, 2, 3 reps in reserve. And that's how you know you're really challenging yourself. This is a hard thing if you've never done it before. It's really hard to know what your capacity is. And the only way you're going to find out is by playing around, seeing what you can do, seeing how sore you feel the next day, and just continuing to do the same thing over and over and over again and get really good at it and just kind of mess around with the weights. So for hypertrophy training, which is muscle building, you want to think about doing exercises, mostly compound lifts. So squats, deadlifts, lunges, single leg deadlifts, rows, push-ups, overhead presses, just really foundational strength exercises, about, 5 to 10 exercises, full body in a session. So not just hitting lower body or not just hitting upper body, but a combination of upper body and lower body movements. Maybe 2, 3, 4 sets, 5 to 10 exercises, rep ranges somewhere between 5 and 15 reps, I think would be great. If you've ever taken my classes, you've done strength work. The CDC recommends that adults are getting 150 minutes of moderate intensity activity each week. So to me, this is things like walking at a brisk pace or maybe jogging. Maybe it's a spin class. Maybe it's, I don't know, some type of like aerobic activity that's getting your heart rate up. If you break that down, if you kind of divide 150 by 5, that's 5 30-minute sessions each week. Additionally, this is addition, 2 strength training sessions per week. So we talked about 30 to 60-minute sessions. So strength training is critical. We need to be training our cardiovascular system as well as working our muscles, improving the tissues within our body through strength training. So 2 sessions per week at a minimum, and only 28% of Americans are achieving this minimum. By the way, with the aerobic activity, if you're doing more high intensity stuff, like really, really burning things down, it can be 75 minutes per week. So shorter, more intense sessions, fewer minutes. So those are the activity recommendations. Let's talk about cardio versus weights, because a lot of people, they think just like calories in, calories out. I'm going to get the most bang for my buck by going for a run versus lifting weights. Now, typically cardio is going to burn calories more effectively. So if you go for a 30-minute run, you might burn 300 calories. If you do 30 minutes of strength training and you're taking rest and you're moving slowly, and really trying to challenge yourself with the weight, you're probably not going to burn 300 calories. However, it's going to be less. It's going to be fewer calories in that session that you've burned. However, when you do strength training, you're not just burning calories in that moment, you're more effectively burning calories after the session is over. It's called excess post-exercise oxygen consumption. And we already talked about this. As you add muscle to your frame, you're gonna be able to eat more calories without storing fat. So to me, strength training is extremely important, especially if you want to lose fat, because the more muscle you have, the higher your metabolic rate is going to be. Now, both things are important. We need to be strength training and we need to be working our cardiorespiratory system. People that do cardio only are probably not very strong and they probably need to add strength training. People that love strength training but they don't like cardio, they are probably not in super great cardio shape and they probably need to add strength training. So a mix of both is what we really should be shooting for. So I don't want to like hate on either one. They are both important. I want to make that known. I like to tell people to train for the health of their insides, not just how your outsides look. I am super biased, but I think kettlebells are an amazing tool for both strength training and cardiovascular training. through ballistic exercises like kettlebell swings, cleans, snatches, um, putting together movements into a kettlebell complex, it really gets your heart rate up. And it's a really effective way to get some cardio going. But also kettlebells in the most foundational kind of compound movements, deadlifts, squats, rows, overhead presses, lunges, all of those things. We can build a lot of strength using kettlebells as well. And in addition, we can use kettlebells to get super mobile, flexible, train for balance. There's just a lot of options with kettlebells. So that's my favorite tool to do all the things. I like other tools too, but kettlebells are my favorite. All right, let's jump into nutrition. All right, so calories are an important thing to measure, at least for a time, to know how much food we're actually putting into our bodies. It's really difficult to estimate really the amount of calories that we're getting. So, at least for a time, I really recommend tracking your calories and seeing where you're at. So, calories are energy. But what's within the calories is really important too, especially if we're trying to add muscle to our frame and or lose fat. So the macronutrients are basically what a calorie consists of. So calories are like every food has calories. And then within those foods, there's certain foods that have more protein or more carbohydrates or more fat. So our carbohydrates are going to be things like fruit, vegetables, bread, grains, oatmeal, crackers, tortillas. Those are going to be our carbohydrate foods. Our proteins are going to be mostly animal meat, beef, chicken, fish, dairy, obviously protein supplements. And then our fats are going to be things like nuts, nut oils, avocados, coconut, dairy. So we'll get into like the combination of foods, but dairy is usually pretty high in protein. In this Venn diagram, you'll see that some of the foods kind of cross over, like beans are a great source of both carbohydrates and protein. And then eggs and cheese, they're a nice little combination of protein and fats. So a lot of foods are a combination of macronutrients. And then some foods are like, this is definitely a carb or this is definitely a protein. Tracking macros is more helpful than just tracking calories alone because when we track our macronutrients, it considers the importance of the protein during body recomposition. So protein is really important. I am kind of a lazy macro tracker. I don't think that it really matters too much all the like carbs, protein, and fat. I think the things that matter the most and how I work with my clients is overall calories. So the calories that we're shooting for, getting a certain protein number that's right for your goals, getting enough fiber, which is pretty much the same baseline for men and women, or for men, it's about 35 grams. For women, it's about 25 grams. And then making sure you're drinking enough water. So if your calories are where you want them to be, your proteins where you want it to be, your fiber, then if you tend to eat a little bit more carbs and lower fat, or more fat and lower carb, or an even split of those, I think any of those above are fine. All right, so let's talk about why protein is so important. So a lot of you guys know that protein's important, but like why? So it is satiating if we're trying to lose weight or we're trying to lose fat. Eating a higher protein number is going to help us feel full and satiated for longer. So we're not going to be so dang hungry when we're in a calorie deficit. When we are strength training, when we are working out, our muscle fibers are um, they're breaking, right? That's just a natural occurrence when we're working out. So eating protein helps the muscles repair and maybe grow stronger and maybe grow bigger. Protein is something that is not stored in our body, it's constantly being used. So we need to constantly be replenishing it. Protein has a higher thermic effect. So this is talking about when we eat food, our body is using energy, it's burning calories to digest our food. It's using slightly more calories to digest protein than it is carbohydrates and fat. So we burn more calories when we eat protein. Okay, so the recommended amount of protein in order to build muscle is going to be somewhere between 0.7 and 1.2 grams per pound of goal body weight. So I personally go right in the middle of those two numbers, 0.7 to 1.2. I go about 1 gram of protein per my goal body weight. So I'm 140 pounds. I don't really want to be more or less than that. I mean, more is fine, but I'm not actively in a calorie deficit. So I'm eating about 140 grams of protein. For some people that are just starting to pay attention to how much protein they're eating, a good minimum baseline amount is 100 grams per day. Because a lot of people, if they just start tracking their food that they're eating, they might notice that they're at 50 grams of protein or 60 or something like that. So going from 60 to 140 might be very difficult to actually accomplish, and it might be hard on your body. So I like to help people get to 100 grams and then work up from there. So if they can be at 100 grams comfortably for a couple weeks, then maybe they can bump up to 110 and then inch their way week over week up to their goal protein amount. We should be eating protein throughout the day. So not just at dinner, but at breakfast, at lunch, at dinner. And if we're snacking, those snacks should be protein forward. Not all protein is created equal. So a sausage dog from Costco is different than, say, some lean ground beef. So we want, especially if we're trying to be in some sort of like calorie maintenance or calorie deficit, the leaner proteins are going to give us the most amount of protein for the calories. So really good options are going to be, like lean beef, turkey, chicken, even chicken thighs. Those have a higher fat content, but sometimes they just taste better and it's not a huge difference. So leaner cuts of protein, things that have less fat in it. So like less salami and sausage and hot dogs and more of those leaner proteins are going to be best. Okay, so here's a sample of kind of the stuff that I eat over and over and over again to get my 140 grams of protein. So for breakfast, if you follow me on social media, you've probably seen this. I've been in a phase of eating a bagel breakfast sandwich. So this has egg whites, it has cheese. I put some deli meat on there. I use turkey. Some people, maybe they prefer ham or some sort of like chicken sausage, make it like a breakfast meat, but that has 40 grams of protein. And then for lunch, I always do a big ass salad. BAS stands for big ass salad. So that is going to always include some sort of protein in there. So a lot of times it's like a rotisserie chicken, but sometimes it's like ground turkey or ground beef or whatever I have. Whatever vegetables I have. Typically, I have salad kits and I'll just throw some salad in there from a salad kit, different, vegetables that I didn't have to chop up. I always have cottage cheese in there. It's additional protein, and also it kind of just binds everything together so I don't have to use a ton of dressing. If I have leftover cooked vegetables, maybe I'll throw some cheese in there, but that's going to get me another 40 grams of protein. My portion of chicken or whatever is usually somewhere between like 4 and 5 ounces of cooked meat. Then for dinner, I always kind of make my meals around the protein source. So pictured here is just a pork loin, very simple, and then roasted vegetables and then some sweet potato. So if I have another, 5 or so ounces of cooked pork chop, that's going to give me another 40 grams of protein. So between breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that's 120 grams. And then a really common snack that I have is a single serving of Oikos Greek yogurt. I like the vanilla. I'll add some berries to it because berries are really high in fiber, and maybe some Cheerios for a crunch. And that yogurt has 20 grams of protein. So here we are at 140 grams with no supplements, no protein bars, nothing like that, just kind of eating regular food. So that is how I make it work in my day. So let's talk about the big rocks of nutrition, just kind of like not getting super far into the weeds, but just like some tangibles that you can take away. Try to eat an adequate amount of calories for you. So if you're always feeling like you're trying to be in some sort of like crazy calorie deficit, try working your way up to maintenance calories, right? Especially if you don't have a lot of weight to lose, give your body a break and try maintenance calories. You might feel really good. You might have more energy to train harder, to just move more throughout the day. Especially for women, I talk to a lot of women that are just under eating chronically. And then probably overeating sometimes too, so that like yo-yo thing that happens. So try maintenance calories. Eat adequate protein. For a lot of people, we're going to start at 100 grams and then see what you can do from there. Fiber. Make sure you're getting 25 grams of fiber. You can look at labels. There's certain, things that have more fiber in them, like maybe a whole grain bread or your oatmeal or your tortilla has added fiber. But really, you can get a great amount of fiber from produce too. So beans, navy beans, black beans, lentils, they have a lot of fiber in them. It's a great source of fiber. Berries. So blueberries, I like to keep frozen berries in my freezer for mostly fiber reasons, to add to yogurt or to add to a smoothie bowl or smoothie or whatever. So blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, avocados are a great source of fiber. So it's a very important thing that I think that is getting a little bit more attention now, especially if you're increasing your protein, also making sure that your fiber is good. Drink more water. Back to like 8 ounce glasses of water. Shoot for 60 ounces. You know, I don't personally drink a gallon of water every day. I'm just happy to get 60 ounces. And just everything operates better when you're drinking more water. And also, you're going to be less full, not less full, you're going to be more full, less hungry when you're properly hydrated. I really just encourage people to stop with the extremes and start playing the long game. Do things that are sustainable so you can wake up every day and feel good and feel like you're fueled to make decisions, like doing your workout, like, just making good decisions in your life because you're not operating from a place of being starving or being hangry or just being super run down. So I'm not a fan of intermittent fasting. I'm not a fan of cutting any macronutrients or any foods really from your diet. Eat the things that you love in moderation, and you should be happy, most of the time with your diet. If you're eating 80%, whole real foods, and then also including some foods that are fun for you, I think it's a lot easier to have this like more sustainable long-term approach. So putting it all together, training and nutrition, strength training 2 times per week, challenge yourself with your weight. Think about how many more reps could I have done there? 10, 50? Okay, we need a heavier weight. If you're like, wow, that was really intense and I could barely finish the set, that's probably more where you need to be. Women, you are so much stronger than you give yourself credit for. If I've seen something in my 10 plus years of training, I think it's that women underestimate their strength. And you are so much stronger than you think you are. Move your body generally 30 minutes every day at that moderate intensity. Go for a walk. I love going for a walk outside. I think that's a great way to just move your body. Very simple. In terms of nutrition, try to just clean things up a little bit. Eat more lean protein, more fiber, calories that are adequate for your goals, and drink more water. Lifestyle factors, try to sleep 7 to 8 hours every night and just start making decisions as if you are already that healthy and fit person. What would that healthy, fit version of Rachel be doing? She would go outside right now and go for a 10-minute walk. Start making those decisions as if you're already that person. Maybe you are that person. Keep doing it. Find something that you love, whether that's the foods that you're eating, the way that you're moving your body. At the end of the day, do what you love, and it's going to make it that much easier to commit to the process and do this every single day forever. It's not an 8-week program. It's not a, lose 10 pounds yesterday. This is going to be something that we commit to for forever so we can live a really long, independent, and awesome life. All right, so next slide. Last slide is how you can find me. I put my email here, my Instagram handle. You can send me a message, you can call me, and then you can find me at Core in Old Town Clovis. I also teach virtually, and all you need for that is a couple kettlebells at home and Zoom at like a computer and internet access. I teach kettlebells 3 times per week in a group setting. And if you're a member of my program, then you get access to the recordings as well. So if you can't make a live class, then you have all those recordings that you can do on your own time when you do have time. All right, that's it. I thank you so, so much for making it to the end. I hope you learned something. I hope it was a good refresh for you. And please reach out if you have any questions. Okay, bye.